Ever feel like you know those times when it's like all your biggest challenges decide to like gang up on you at once?
Oh, yeah.
Like the universe just hit the play button on like the hardest level of your life or something?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if I told you those problems, those might be like your biggest opportunities?
Ooh, I like that.
That's what we're going to dive into today.
Right.
We're going to be looking at excerpts from a motivational speech, and it was originally given in Arabic.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's all about this idea of personal growth and resilience.
I love that.
So it's really about how we view these tough times.
Yeah. This speech is really interesting because it flips the script on how we normally think about adversity.
Mm-hmm,
right?
Yeah.
Like it's not about avoiding the tough times.
Right.
It's about how we can use them.
Yeah, use them to grow.
Exactly, as like moments for incredible growth.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the speaker uses a lot of powerful imagery.
Okay.
Like he talks about walls closing in and life begins in the downpour. I mean, it's powerful stuff, right?
It is, yeah.
Have you ever felt that?
Oh, yeah.
Like the walls are closing in?
All the time.
How do you react to that?
Well, I think the speech argues that like how we respond to those moments is actually what defines us.
Right.
You know, it's not about like the choices we've made in the past.
Yeah.
It's about how we like rise to the challenge.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
How do we like navigate through those storms when they come?
I'm curious about that because the speech also talks about the power of taking action,
Oh, yeah.
even if it's imperfect.
Yes.
And there's this story in the speech about the speaker's friend, Clayton.
Okay.
And Clayton loves to dance,
Mm-hmm.
but he was terrified to like share that online.
Yeah.
And he almost let that fear stop him completely.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I think we all can in some way.
Yeah.
It's so easy to let fear hold us back.
Right.
The story about Clayton is such a good example.
Yeah.
He was like agonizing over posting this simple dance video for ages.
I know, it's crazy.
But what's so interesting is that like eventually he just went for it.
He did.
Yeah, he just did it. He took action. And guess what?
What?
People loved it.
They loved it.
They loved it. It's so cool.
So it's like sometimes we don't have to wait till we're 100%, you know?
Yeah.
Like even if we're just feeling 40%, that 40% effort is like, that's all you need sometimes to just get started.
Yeah, just to break through that initial fear.
Yeah. It's better than being stuck at 0%.
Oh, for sure. That's a great takeaway from that story.
So I guess the question for all of us is, you know, like, what are you holding back on?
Yeah.
What are you not doing just because you're waiting for the, like, perfect moment?
Right. That's such a good question.
The speech also dives into this, like, really cool concept about how we see ourselves,
Okay.
like our identity.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically argues that, like, our self-perception, like the way we see ourselves,
Yeah.
it shapes our actions and even our reality.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a big statement.
It is.
But he makes a good case for it, I think.
He does.
Like he gives these examples,
Okay.
like runners versus bodybuilders,
Mm-hmm.
and how they train and perform so differently because they have
Yeah.
these different identities,
Oh, okay.
right?
Right.
Like they see themselves in different ways, and so they act accordingly.
And it's like, you know those people who say, oh, I'm not a morning person?
Oh, yeah.
Or like smokers who can't quit.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of like putting themselves in a box.
Exactly. Like these labels become self-fulfilling prophecies almost.
Right.
You know, because if we're constantly telling ourselves, I'm not a creative person or I'm terrible at math,
Yeah.
we're actually like limiting our potential.
Yeah, we're holding ourselves back.
Exactly.
What if instead of like labeling ourselves, you know,
Yeah.
what if we focused on the actions that we want to take and the person that we want to become?
Okay.
He uses this example of becoming a healthy person.
Yeah.
It's not just about like, you know, going to the gym. It's like a complete identity shift.
It's a lifestyle change.
And to like really embody that new identity,
Yeah.
you need a strong mindset, right?
For sure.
And the speaker talks about his experience on a rowing team
Okay.
and how even when you're like exhausted and hurting,
Yeah.
you just find a way to push through.
Right.
Like that resilience, that grit,
Yeah.
it translates to any challenge in life.
I can see that.
It's about showing up, even when it's tough, and developing the mindset of someone who just never gives up.
I love that. And it reminds me of this analogy he uses
Oh, yeah. Which one?
about the cows versus buffalo
Oh, yeah, yeah.
in a storm.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
So he says, like, cows, they run away from the storm,
Okay.
but they end up staying in it longer.
Right.
because they're running away from it.
Mhm.
But buffalo, on the other hand,
Yeah.
they charge right into it.
I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's saying it's like that with how we deal with problems, right?
Yeah.
Like avoiding them.
Yeah.
That just prolongs the pain.
It makes it last longer.
But facing them head on, like the buffalo, it allows us to move through them faster and emerge stronger on the other side.
So be the buffalo.
Be the buffalo.
I love it. It's kind of like we need to be more like that buffalo, you know,
Yeah.
charging head first into our problems.
Total.
But this speech also has this really interesting idea
Yeah.
about whether we have the storyline backwards.
Backwards.
Yeah, like in certain areas of our lives.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So he talks about this idea of, how we often try to find the right person
Mm-hmm.
to like complete us?
Yeah.
Instead of becoming whole individuals first,
Oh, it's a good point.
we think if we find the one,
Hmm.
all our problems will magically be solved.
Right, like that fairy tale ending.
But what if it's actually the other way around?
What do you mean?
Like, what if we need to do the inner work first?
Okay, yeah.
Become the best version of ourselves. And then we attract the right people.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
It's about shifting our focus from like external validation
Yeah.
to internal growth.
Yeah.
And he actually applies this whole backward storyline thing to other areas too.
Right.
Like achieving success to find freedom.
Oh, instead of like living freely now.
Exactly.
That's so true. Like we think we need to grind and hustle,
Yeah.
until we reach some level of success. And then we can finally enjoy life.
Yeah, we put off happiness.
But what if we're missing out on the freedom that we already have?
It's about embracing the present,
Yeah.
and recognizing that true freedom,
Yeah.
it comes from within.
I love that.
It's not from like external achievements.
Right.
He also talks about how we tend to copy others instead of embracing our own authenticity.
Yeah, that's so true. We look at all these successful people
Yeah.
and we try to do exactly what they did.
Right. We try to replicate their every move.
But then we lose sight of our own, our strengths and our passions.
It's not about blindly copying though, right? It's
Yeah.
more about like extracting the principles of success
Okay.
and applying them in a way that aligns with like
Yeah.
our own values and vision.
So like we can learn from others,
Yeah,
but we have to like adapt it to our own lives.
exactly. The key is to remember that.
What's the key?
Like we are the formula.
Oh, you love that.
We're not someone else's blueprint.
We are the formula.
Okay.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah. It's about recognizing that we each have something unique to offer.
And sometimes, it takes courage and persistence
Mm-hmm.
to really bring that to life. There's this anecdote in the speech
Oh, yeah.
about a friend of the speaker who kept asking this woman out,
Okay.
even after she rejected him.
Oh, wow.
Multiple times.
He was persistent.
He was persistent. And guess what?
What?
Eventually she said yes.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It just shows you like persistence can pay off.
This kind of leads into this really powerful idea in the speech
Okay.
about the door of almost.
The door of almost.
Yeah, and it's this idea that like
Okay.
we often give up right before a breakthrough.
Like right on the cusp of achieving something great.
Exactly.
Oh, that's frustrating.
Think about J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
She faced so many rejections
Before Harry Potter.
before Harry Potter took off.
Yeah.
Or Michael Jordan getting cut from his high school basketball team.
Oh, wow.
Imagine if they had given up
Yeah.
at the first sign of failure.
It's like we got to push through those moments of doubt
Yeah.
and recognize that like the biggest rewards often come
When?
right when we're about to give up.
Oh, that's so powerful.
He also shares a really interesting story
Oh, yeah.
about his own experience
Okay.
building his YouTube channel.
Okay, so he's been preaching what he's been practicing
Right.
this whole time.
I love that.
That's so cool.
So he shows this chart
yeah.
and it's like 7 years
7 years
of minimal growth.
on YouTube.
Yeah, before he experiences this like sudden surge in success.
Oh, wow. So he was grinding for a long time.
He was putting in the work.
So did he like change up his content or something?
That's a thing. He didn't change his like core message
Really?
or his creative process.
Huh.
He was still passionate about what he was doing,
Okay.
sharing his stories and his insights.
So what was the difference?
He started paying attention to like
What?
the thumbnails,
Okay.
titles, the branding of his videos.
Oh, so it's like packaging.
Yeah, like making his content more accessible
Yeah.
and appealing.
So it's kind of like even when we're creating amazing work,
Yeah,
we still got to think about how we're presenting it.
presentation is key. But you know what's even more important?
Right.
than the technical stuff
Okay.
was his mindset.
Oh, during those 7 years?
Yeah, those 7 years of slow growth.
What was his mindset like?
He had a few key insights
Okay, I want to hear those.
that really helped him stay the course.
I'm all ears.
Because first of all,
Yeah.
he genuinely loved what he was doing.
So, like, finding your passion is crucial?
Yeah, he saw it as a chance to make a difference,
Okay.
to create something meaningful.
And that fueled him,
Yeah, that passion.
even when he wasn't seeing results.
He also talks about the importance of unwavering commitment.
Okay.
Like he had no plan B.
Wow, so quitting wasn't an option?
It wasn't an option.
Wow.
And he never stopped believing
And why?
that he was like one decision away
From success.
from a totally different life.
That's powerful.
Did he talk about setbacks at all?
Yeah, like, how did he deal with those?
He said you got to constantly be adjusting and improving.
So it's not just about setting a goal and, like, sticking to it blindly.
No.
It's about being flexible.
Yeah. And adapting along the way.
And he also said something about adding value,
Right.
right?
He knew that if he could help even one person
Yeah.
with his work, he could potentially help millions.
So it's about, like, a bigger purpose.
Yeah. Making a positive impact on the world.
I can't wait to hear about those 9 controllable factors he talked about. Okay, so 9 things we can control.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
You know, instead of focusing on all the things we can't control,
Right.
we can focus on these 9.
Okay, that feels more empowering.
It does, right?
Hey.
Like, especially after hearing about, you know,
Yeah.
those 7 years on YouTube.
Yeah, those 7 years could felt really discouraging.
Yeah,
Where
right.
he was
No.
like, no, I can control these other things.
The speaker really reminds us, you know,
Yeah.
we have a lot of power.
To shape our own reality.
Yeah.
Just by focusing on what's within our reach.
I love that.
Okay, so break it down for me. What's number 1?
Number 1 is mindset.
Mindset.
I think we're sensing a theme here.
Yeah, mindset is everything.
It's all about choosing our attitude,
Yeah.
no matter what's happening around us.
Oh, he quotes Viktor Frankl. Yeah, and he says, everything can be taken from a man but one thing.
Okay.
The last of the human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances to choose one's own way.
Wow.
That's powerful.
That is powerful.
So it's like, even in the midst of suffering,
Yeah.
we still have the power to choose.
How we respond.
How we respond, yeah, and how we see the situation.
Our mindset is really like
Yeah,
our most powerful tool.
for sure.
I really believe that.
Okay, so what's number 2?
Number 2 is time allocation.
Time allocation.
So being intentional
Okay.
with how we spend our time,
Making sure it aligns with
our values.
our goals.
Less scrolling, more
Yeah.
creating.
Exactly. It's about, like, where are you putting your energy?
He talks about it like watering a garden.
Oh, yeah.
Like what we focus on grows.
I love that.
So if we want a thriving life,
Yeah.
we got to be mindful about where we're directing our energy.
That's a good one. Okay, what's next?
Number 3 is our morning routine.
Oh, the morning routine.
How we start our day
It's the tone.
sets the tone for everything.
That's so true.
You know, he's really into like
What?
cold plunges, sauna, coffee, journaling, planning.
I am not a morning person at all.
Really?
But, like,
Yeah.
hearing him talk about it,
Yeah.
it makes me want to, like, rethink my whole morning.
Even small adjustments can make a big difference.
That's true. Okay, what else? What's number 4?
Number 4 is gratitude.
Gratitude.
It's not just about feeling good. It's like
Yeah.
a powerful tool
For what?
for navigating challenges.
Oh, because when we're grateful for what we have,
Yeah.
the tough stuff doesn't seem so bad.
It's about choosing to see the good,
Yeah.
even when things are hard.
It's like choosing your mindset.
Right. It all comes
Huh.
back to mindset.
Okay, what's number 5?
Number 5 is our willingness to listen.
Oh, listening.
It sounds so simple.
I know I'm not always the best listener.
It's so easy to get caught up
Yeah, in our own thoughts.
in our own thoughts, right? Like we forget to really hear.
Yeah, we forget to hear what other people are saying.
But he says that listening is so crucial for growth
Yeah, I could see that.
and understanding.
And how we learn from others.
Exactly, and gain new perspectives.
I like that. Okay, what's number 6?
Number 6 is our commitment to education.
Education.
So continually learning,
Okay.
expanding our understanding of the world.
So never stop being curious.
Yeah, he says learning is a lifelong journey.
Oh, and he says progress equals happiness.
I love that.
Me too. Okay, so that's mindset time, morning routine, gratitude, listening, education.
And then number 7
Yeah.
is our social circle.
Oh, our people.
Our people.
The people we surround ourselves with.
They have such a huge impact on our lives.
It's like choosing your tribe wisely, right?
Exactly. Make sure your relationships are supportive.
Okay, what's number 8?
Number 8 is how we treat others.
How we treat others.
So compassion, empathy, kindness.
It's about like creating a more positive world for everyone.
Yeah, not just for ourselves.
I love that.
Okay, last one. What's number 9?
The goals we set.
Oh, goals.
Yeah, having a clear vision.
For the future.
Yeah, for what we want to achieve.
And then actually taking action.
He reminds us we can't hit targets
Yeah.
that aren't there.
So goals give us, like, direction and purpose.
Yeah, and they help us stay focused.
Even when things get tough.
So it's like taking ownership of our lives, right? Creating that roadmap for success and holding ourselves accountable.
This whole deep dive has been amazing.
It has.
It's like a masterclass in how to, like, see problems as opportunities.
Yeah, it really is.
And it's so cool how it all comes back to mindset.
It does. It all starts with our mindset.
I'm walking away from this with, like, a whole new perspective.
That's awesome.
And I'm thinking about that one problem in my life that I've been avoiding.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm kind of excited to tackle it.
I love that.
Avoid any kind of discomfort at all costs.
Yeah.
But this book actually argues the opposite.
Yeah.
It says those tough times, you know, the ones that make you just want to, like, curl up and disappear, that's actually when life truly begins.
It is. And the author really challenges us to reframe how we understand difficulty. He says that actually obstacles are not roadblocks, but the terrain that we build resilience on. He uses this really good metaphor. He says, quote, "When we feel lost and overwhelmed and stuck and scared, that's when the universe presses the play button and the movie starts."
I love that. It's like all of a sudden things get real, right? You're thrust into the action. But instead of running from the chaos, he's saying lean into it. See it as like an opportunity for growth.
Absolutely. And he actually introduces this idea of problems as disguised opportunities. You know, it's not about pretending everything's perfect when it's clearly not. It's about recognizing those difficult moments. Often they hold like the seeds of our greatest potential. They really do.
Yeah. You know, I remember this one time, I completely froze up giving a presentation at work. And I just wanted to disappear, like literally just melt into the floor. But afterward, I realized the fear wasn't actually about the presentation itself. It was more about like what people would think of me.
Yeah.
And it forced me to confront some pretty deep-seated insecurities.
Right.
But honestly, that whole experience, it ended up being like a turning point in my career. So it's really true what he's saying.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of how something that feels negative can actually lead to positive transformation. And the author actually, he uses a similar analogy. He talks about cows and buffalo in a storm. And he says that cows, they try to run from the storm, which actually prolongs their exposure, right? But buffalo, they charge directly into it. So they're minimizing their time, you know, in the thick of things.
Wow. It's like a metaphor for how we deal with our problems.
Yeah.
So you're saying we should tackle them head on.
Exactly.
It might feel intense in the moment, but ultimately you come out the other side, you know, stronger, more resilient.
Exactly. And this kind of ties into the idea that starting, even imperfectly, is so crucial. He really encourages us to embrace those messy, awkward beginnings, even if they feel insignificant in the moment.
Yeah.
You remember the story about Clayton, the author's friend, who struggled to post that dancing video?
Oh, yeah. He wanted to post this video, but he just kept overthinking it, like to the point where he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I think he even at one point considered writing a whole essay about vulnerability to go with it.
Totally. But he finally realized that just hitting post was actually the bravest and most authentic choice he could make.
Right.
And it's such a good reminder that action, even if it's imperfect action, is always better than inaction. He even compares it to using training wheels when you're learning to ride a bike.
Yeah.
Might not be the most glamorous way to start, but it gets you moving.
Yeah, it's like that saying, done is better than perfect, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we get so caught up in trying to do things the right way that we never even start.
Exactly. And this actually brings us to a really crucial point, the power of identity.
Okay.
The author highlights how the way we see ourselves directly shapes our actions.
Yeah.
And ultimately our reality.
So he talks about, I think he even goes as far as to call himself the best speechwriter on planet Earth, right?
He does.
Even though, you know, he hasn't written speeches for like presidents and world leaders and stuff. Pretty bold statement.
It is bold, but his point is that that belief, even if it, you know, feels a bit much at first, fuels his ambition and pushes him to constantly improve.
So he's basically like stepping into the identity he aspires to, even before he feels like he's earned it or something.
Exactly. He's tapping into this idea of sort of becoming the person you want to be, even if you don't feel quite ready yet.
That's interesting. It makes me think about all those like self-limiting beliefs we all have. You know, like, I'm not a math person, I'm not creative, things like that.
Yeah, exactly. He argues that those labels can actually become self-fulfilling prophecies. If we keep telling ourselves we're not good at something, well, we're probably never going to be good at it.
Right, because we're not even going to try.
Exactly. But on the flip side, when we embrace those positive identities, even if they feel, a bit aspirational at first, we actually open ourselves up to new possibilities. And this connects back to his point about finding a way, about cultivating that never give up attitude.
Right. And he actually uses his own experience on a rowing team as an example, doesn't he?
He does. He talks about how winning meant pushing through that pain and discomfort, just like a competitor who's training hundreds of miles away.
It's like, it's not even about physical endurance at that point, is it? It's more about developing that mental resilience.
Absolutely, yeah. It's about becoming the kind of person who finds a way no matter what. And it links to this idea that lasting change, it often requires a complete shift in identity. It's not enough to just, want to be different. We have to start seeing ourselves as that different person and then acting accordingly.
It's like that quote by Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's like we have to get over our fear of our own potential to really step into the people we're meant to be.
That's beautiful. And speaking of overcoming fear, the author also highlights this concept of almost, those times when we give up right before a breakthrough.
Oh, yeah?
He tells a story about his friend who was almost ready to give up on pursuing a woman he was interested in.
Oh, no.
Thankfully, he stuck with it, and they're now engaged.
Just to him.
But it's a reminder that sometimes success is just, right around the corner.
Right. If you give up too soon, you never get to see it.
Exactly. And he even brings up examples like J.K. Rowling, who was rejected by multiple publishers before finding success with Harry Potter.
Oh, wow.
And Michael Jordan, who was famously cut from his high school basketball team.
No way. I never knew that.
Their stories show us that setbacks, those moments of almost, they don't have to define us.
Right. It's about having the courage to keep going. And that actually brings us to the author's own experience, right? His 7-year journey on YouTube.
Exactly. He was creating all this content, but wasn't seeing much growth for years. But he stayed committed.
Wow. 7 years. That's a long time to keep going without much, external validation.
It is, but he talks about how he finally had a breakthrough when he shifted his focus to the packaging of his content.
What do you mean by packaging?
Things like titles, thumbnails, branding, all those little things that can actually make a big difference in terms of visibility.
So it's not just about the content itself, but also how you present it to the world.
Exactly. And it's fascinating how those seemingly small adjustments can lead to huge results.
It makes you wonder how many other people are out there creating incredible things, but haven't quite cracked the code on how to, get it out there? What were some of his key takeaways from that whole experience?
Well, he emphasizes the importance of finding joy in the process itself and focusing on intrinsic motivation, even when, you're not seeing those external rewards.
So it's not about chasing fame or fortune. It's about the love of the game, right?
Yeah.
The passion for what you're doing.
Right. He also highlights the power of unwavering commitment, even in the face of slow progress. He's a firm believer in burning the bridges and going all in, even when it's tough.
So no plan B.
He argues that having a plan B often sabotages plan A. It's like you're giving yourself an excuse to quit before you've even truly started.
I can see that. It's about fully committing to your vision, even when you're not sure where it's going to lead.
Exactly. And finally, he stresses the need to continually adjust and improve, even when your core mission remains the same.
So it's like you never stop learning and growing.
Right. He says you have to stay flexible, adaptable, and be willing to experiment and try new things.
It's really inspiring to hear about his dedication and how he's able to turn things around. It really highlights the importance of not giving up, even when progress seems slow. But, it's a lot easier to stay committed when you feel like you have some sense of agency, some control over your life. Which leads me to the author's final point, this idea of internal control.
That's a crucial point you bring up, because the author argues that despite external circumstances, often beyond our control, there are 9 specific things we can control that directly impact our lives. And focusing on those, we can actually empower ourselves to create meaningful change.
So it's about shifting our focus inward, right? Instead of getting caught up in things we can't change, we focus on the things we can. What are those 9 areas?
He lists them as mindset, time allocation, morning routine, gratitude, willingness to listen, commitment to education, social circle, treatment of others, and goal setting.
Wow, that's a pretty comprehensive list. It feels like it touches on so many different aspects of personal development.
It really does. And what's fascinating is how many of these areas connect back to the themes we've already discussed. For example, mindset links directly back to the idea of seeing problems as opportunities, while time allocation aligns with the concept of commitment.
It's like he's giving us this mental toolkit for taking ownership of our lives.
Yeah.
And building that resilience we were talking about earlier. Let's unpack a few of these, starting with mindset.
Absolutely. The author kicks this off with a quote from Viktor Frankl, the renowned psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor. Frankl famously said, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms. To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way."
That's powerful, especially coming from someone who endured such unimaginable suffering. If he could find a way to choose his attitude in those circumstances, it speaks volumes about the strength we all have within.
Exactly. And this isn't about toxic positivity or pretending everything's fine when it's not. The author is drawing on psychological research that shows how our thoughts and beliefs directly influence our emotions and behaviors. Even in the face of hardship, we can choose to focus on finding meaning, on learning, on maintaining our dignity.
I've noticed that in my own life too. When I can catch myself spiraling into negativity and consciously shift my focus to what I can control, even if it's just my attitude, it makes a huge difference.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Recognizing that while we can't always control what happens to us, we can control how we respond. The author goes on to say that even in our darkest moments, something meaningful, even beautiful, can emerge. Our attitude, he argues, is that one thing that can never truly be taken away.
I love that. Okay, let's move on to time allocation. That one seems pretty straightforward, but I'm curious how the author frames it.
He keeps it pretty simple, actually, using the analogy, what you water grows. He challenges us to think about what's truly important in our lives and whether we're actually giving it the time and attention it deserves.
So it's about being intentional with our time and making sure our actions align with our values. If we're constantly feeling stressed and overwhelmed, maybe it's time to take a step back and see where our energy is really going.
Exactly. Are we spending our time on activities that truly matter, that nourish our souls and move us closer to our goals? Or are we letting distractions and obligations dictate our schedules? It's about making conscious choices about where we invest our precious time and energy.
It makes me think about the Pareto principle, that 80-20 rule, where 80% of our results often come from just 20% of our efforts. Maybe it's time to identify that vital 20% in our lives and really water those areas.
I like how you connect that principle to this idea of time allocation. Now, another area the author emphasizes is the importance of a morning routine. He believes that how we start our day sets the tone for everything that follows.
I'm a big believer in morning routines too. It's like creating a ritual that helps you step into the day with intention and clarity. But the author gets pretty specific, doesn't he? Talking about things like cold plunges and sauna.
He does. He shares his personal routine, which involves those things, plus coffee, journaling, and planning his day. But while those might not be everyone's cup of tea, the key takeaway is the importance of intentionally designing our mornings to support our physical and mental well-being. He even quotes W. Clement Stone, who said, "Little hinges swing big doors."
It's true, those small choices we make each morning, like choosing a healthy breakfast or taking a few minutes to meditate, can have a ripple effect throughout the entire day. I know for me, when I skip my morning workout, I tend to feel more sluggish and less focused throughout the day.
And that's a perfect example of how even seemingly small actions can have a significant impact on our overall state of being. Okay, let's shift gears to something that's often touted as a simple yet profound tool for well-being: gratitude. I'm curious to hear the author's perspective on this.
Gratitude is something I try to practice regularly, but sometimes it feels a bit, surface level, like, oh yeah, be thankful for the good things in your life. But I'm always looking for ways to make it more impactful.
I think you'll appreciate the author's take on this. He goes beyond the typical be thankful for what you have message and emphasizes gratitude as a powerful tool for actually shifting our perspective.
Yeah.
He argues that when we focus on what we lack, we inevitably fall into a negative spiral. But when we cultivate gratitude, we start to truly appreciate all the good in our lives, which can make challenges feel less daunting.
So it's not about denying the difficult things. It's about balancing them out with an awareness of the positive. It's like consciously choosing to focus on what's working, what's good, instead of getting stuck in a loop of negativity.
Exactly. And research in positive psychology backs this up. Studies have shown that practicing gratitude can lead to increased levels of happiness, improved relationships, and even better physical health. It's a simple practice, but its effects can be quite profound.
That makes me think about that saying, what you focus on expands. If we're constantly focused on what's wrong, we'll likely find more things to be unhappy about. But if we focus on what we're grateful for, we'll naturally start to see more good in our lives.
I love how you connected that to the idea of gratitude. And speaking of paying attention, another important area the author highlights is the willingness to listen. He believes that truly good listeners are a rare breed.
I think that's so true. In a world where everyone's constantly vying for attention, it's easy to fall into the trap of waiting for our turn to speak instead of truly listening to what the other person is saying.
The author argues that by actively listening to others, we can gain valuable insights and perspectives that we might otherwise miss. We can learn from other people's experiences, broaden our understanding of the world, and strengthen our relationships. It's about being present, curious, and genuinely interested in what the other person has to say.
It's like that quote by Stephen Covey. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. It's about putting aside our own agendas and truly trying to see the world through the other person's eyes.
And that ties in beautifully with the next area, commitment to education. He's not just talking about formal education here, though. He's advocating for a lifelong pursuit of knowledge, a willingness to keep learning and growing in all areas of our lives.
I love that. It's like embracing that beginner's mind, that sense of curiosity and openness to new experiences and ideas.
Exactly. He even says progress equals happiness. The idea being that we thrive when we're engaged in learning, when we're pushing ourselves to expand our understanding and explore new possibilities.
It's about recognizing that learning isn't something that stops when we graduate from school. It's a continuous process, and one that can bring a lot of joy and fulfillment to our lives. What about the next area, social circle? I know this one can be a bit tricky.
It can be. We don't always have complete control over who we interact with, especially in work or family settings.
Right, but I totally agree that the people we surround ourselves with have a huge impact on our lives.
Exactly. And that's why the author stresses the importance of being intentional about our social circle. He argues that to the extent we're able, we should prioritize spending time with people who lift us up, who inspire and challenge us to be our best selves. And on the flip side, recognize when certain relationships are draining our energy or holding us back.
It's about recognizing that we have a choice, to some degree, in who we allow into our inner circle. And those choices have consequences. If we're constantly surrounded by negativity and drama, it's going to affect our outlook on life.
Absolutely. He also emphasizes how we treat others as an area within our control, regardless of how they treat us.
So it's about taking responsibility for our own actions and choosing to interact with others in a way that aligns with our values.
He encourages compassion, empathy, and a genuine effort to understand other people's perspectives, even when it's difficult. And this, of course, circles back to the importance of listening.
It's about recognizing that our actions have a ripple effect, and that by treating others with kindness and respect, we create a more positive environment for ourselves and contribute to a better world overall. Which seems like a perfect segue into the final area of internal control: goal setting.
He uses a sports analogy here, saying that no team would ever take the field without a game plan. They'd be running around aimlessly with no clear objective in mind.
It's such a great point. It's about being proactive, having a vision for where we want to go, and then creating a plan to get there. Whether it's in our careers, our relationships, or our personal growth, having clear goals gives us direction and purpose.
And it helps us measure our progress, make adjustments along the way, and celebrate our wins. He even quotes Jim Rohn, who said, "You can't hit targets that aren't there."
So true. It's like we're wandering aimlessly without a destination in mind. Goal setting helps us to focus our energy and create a roadmap for achieving the things that matter most to us.
It's about taking ownership of our lives and shaping the future we desire, one goal at a time. And this connects back to the author's overarching message. we have far more control over our lives than we often realize.
It's empowering, really. But I'm curious, what do you think is the key to actually implementing these ideas into our lives? Because it's one thing to read about them, but actually putting them into practice is a whole other challenge.
I think the author would agree with you there. He stresses that knowledge without action is essentially useless.
So how do we bridge that gap between knowing and doing? What advice does he offer?
Well, he emphasizes that change is a process, not like a one-time event.
Right. It's not like you just flip a switch.
Right. It's really about those small, consistent changes you make over time. You build those new habits, and slowly over time, you shift your thinking and behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. You don't have to be perfect from the get-go. It's all about making progress step by step.
Exactly. And he actually also talks about self-awareness, Before we can change anything, we have to kind of understand ourselves, our strengths, our weaknesses, and kind of the patterns that are keeping us stuck.
Right.
And he actually suggests things like journaling, meditation, even therapy.
Oh, wow.
To really develop that self-awareness.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's hard to change, what you don't acknowledge, right?
Exactly.
And sometimes it's helpful to have a guide, someone to help you see those blind spots you might miss.
Yeah, absolutely. And then he also highlights the power of accountability,
Okay.
Having someone there to support you, encourage you, and actually hold you accountable to your goals can make a big difference.
Big time.
Whether that's a friend or family member, a coach, or even just a group of, like-minded people, all working towards similar goals.
It's like having a cheerleader in your corner, someone who believes in you, even when you don't believe in yourself. I know for me, having a workout buddy makes me way more likely to actually stick to my fitness routine.
It really does. Yeah, you're leveraging that social support to stay motivated and on track.
Yeah.
And finally, he encourages us to kind of embrace a spirit of experimentation.
Oh, okay.
Really.
So you're saying it's not about finding that one right way.
Exactly. It's more about trying different approaches, seeing what works for you. He says, think of it like personal growth as an ongoing experiment. It's like a journey of self-discovery where you're constantly learning, adapting, and refining how you approach things. There's really no one-size-fits-all.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, you see all these self-help people out there, and they all claim to have, the ultimate answer. And it's where do you even start?
Right. And he reminds us that, we're our own best teachers. We already have the wisdom and intuition within us to figure out what we need. It's just about tapping into that inner guidance and trusting the process.
Yeah. And being kind to ourselves along the way,
Totally.
We're all works in progress. Celebrating those small victories. I think that's a really good point to end on.
Yeah, I agree. As we're wrapping up this deep dive, it occurs to me that the book's title, Be Yourself, it's so simple.
Yeah.
It's almost like a challenge or like an invitation to really go on this journey of, self-discovery, to become the most authentic and empowered version of yourself.
It is. And it's a journey that, we can all take, regardless of where we're starting from. So to all of you listening out there, what really resonated with you today?
Yeah.
What's that one idea or insight you're going to take with you this week? Maybe it's mindset, gratitude, the importance of lifelong learning.
Yeah, whatever it is, we hope this deep dive gave you some tools and inspiration for your own journey. It really is about taking those ideas and turning them into something real, something lasting.
Right, because it's one thing to understand these concepts, but actually putting them into practice, that's the real challenge. So what does he say about bridging that gap, between knowing and doing?
Well, he makes this point that change, real change, it's a process.
Okay.
Not just this one-time event. It's not like flipping a switch and boom, suddenly you're a different person.
Yeah, I wish it were that easy.
Right. But it's about those small, consistent changes that you make over time. Building new habits, gradually kind of shifting how you think and behave.
It's like you build momentum as you go,
Exactly.
Right?
It's like that saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Love that quote. So you don't have to, do everything perfectly from the start. Just got to keep moving forward.
Exactly. And he also talks about the importance of self-awareness.
Okay.
Before you can change anything, you got to understand yourself, your strengths, weaknesses, those patterns that are keeping you stuck.
So true.
And he suggests, things like journaling, meditation, even therapy as ways to really cultivate that self-awareness.
Yeah, it's kind of like you got to see where you are before you can figure out where you want to go.
Right. Sometimes it helps to have someone guide you, help you see those blind spots you might miss on your own.
Yeah. Okay, so what else? What other tips does he offer?
Well, he also talks about accountability.
Okay.
Having someone, to support you, to hold you accountable to those goals.
Right, someone to keep you on track.
Exactly. And it could be like a friend, family member, a coach, maybe even just a group of like-minded people, all working towards similar things.
That makes sense. It's like having a team, you're not in it alone.
Exactly. It's that social support, right? Helping you stay motivated and on track. And then finally, he encourages this spirit of, experimentation.
Okay, so it's about trying different things, seeing what works for you.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all answer here.
I like that, because sometimes it feels like there's all this pressure to find the right way to do things.
Right, exactly. But he reminds us we're all different, and what works for one person might not work for another. It's all about finding what works for you.
What I'm taking away from all this is, it's about the journey, not the destination.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's about embracing that process of growth and change and enjoying the ride.
Exactly. And, it's about being kind to ourselves along the way. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to have setbacks.
Yeah, we're all a work in progress. The important thing is to just keep learning and keep growing.
Absolutely. Well, this has been such a great deep dive. So many thought-provoking ideas.
Yeah, this book is really packed with wisdom.
And, as we wrap things up here, I'm curious, for everyone listening out there, what resonated with you the most today? What's that one takeaway you're going to carry with you this week? Maybe it's the power of mindset, the importance of gratitude, that commitment to lifelong learning.
Yeah, whatever it is, we hope this conversation has sparked something in you, giving you some new tools, and maybe even a little inspiration to keep moving forward on your own journey of personal growth. Thanks for joining us.